You're listening to the AFTERBUZZ TV network, now the largest new media platform on the web, and your #1 source for after-show entertainment. From the AFTERBUZZ Studios in Los Angeles, California, presented by Maria Menounos and streaming live thanks to Akamai Technologies, this is AFTERBUZZ TV's Cosmos After Show. We'll break down tonight's episode and get you all the latest news and gossip. And now, another post-game wrap-up show for your favorite TV show. It's AFTERBUZZ TV's Cosmos After Show.
Electric Avenue, and then we'll take it higher.
What's up, AFTERBUZZ TV Nation? All right, with over 20 million weekly downloads, downloaded in over 100 countries, we're your one stop, one destination for true after-show entertainment. I'm JC, and this is Cosmos, Episode 10, The Electric Boy. Let's round out the table and introduce our wonderful hosts, starting with the lovely lady to my right.
Hello, everybody. I am Chiklis.
And, okay, if you guys aren't watching us live, you have to, because... Did you guys coordinate what's going on?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Of course.
You guys didn't get the memo?
Apparently we didn't. On Wednesdays we wear pink.
Yeah, what is that?
Sunday.
What color is that?
I know, it's like, it's not Wednesday.
It's not. No, I know. It's Sunday. It's Sunday. Fine. On Wednesdays we wear pink, and on Sundays we wear... It's like a pink, but it's like a salmon. A salmon? Yeah.
Let's call it salmon sherbet.
Salmon sherbet. That sounds like a
That sounds
great new flavor.
gnarly.
That sounds disgusting.
Salmon sherbet to my left, please.
Hello, I'm Dillon Chance, and it's lovely to be here.
You have such a great voice. And to your right, and to your left.
Face perfect for radio there. No. Just kidding. Scott Moore. It's good to be here, guys.
And Roya, I gotta say, we're only starting like this because this episode's got us totally kerfunkled. So, ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Roya. Roya, are you in the back, right?
Yeah, it's me.
Right.
Yes.
Couldn't see through the glass there. Who was there?
The crowd goes wild.
Yay!
All right, so all I gotta say is, if you can see us, thank YouTube. If you can hear us, thank iTunes. Before you can thank them, thank Michael Faraday.
Yeah.
Yes.
I see what you did there.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that.
All right, so overall thoughts on tonight's episode.
Well, okay. I liked the episode. We discussed. This one's hard to talk about because it's just about one person, pretty much. Just about one guy, the whole episode. But it's really good that they're doing stuff like this because they're getting these names that, like, people should know out there. And, like, I had heard of the name Faraday, Michael Faraday. I'd heard of him loosely here and there. And even in, like, pop culture references, like the guy in Lost named Faraday. Like, you know, things like that. But I never knew his whole backstory. And now I do, and it's great. And I love that.
I'm actually going to go on AfterBuzzTV.com and activate our chat roll so they can send us some questions about tonight's episode because we need them tonight.
Yeah,
So-
absolutely. Well, the nice thing about this episode was because we were focusing on one person, and by the way, an impressive person at that. There were a few things going on for me during this. The first being feeling a massive inferiority complex coming on because this guy literally just redefined science for pretty much set the precedent for the rest of scientific history and pretty much gave us all of this one guy, and he lived to what? Not that long comparatively. I mean, by the time he was 49, he had already like created the motor and the first generator and just an insane amount of accomplishments. So I was just kind of sitting there like, well, I have 29 more years to redefine everything about civilization. It was just incredibly impressive to say the least, and awesome to see that one person is capable of that.
Right, and one person that had no education.
Right.
Really,
Yeah.
at all. That was like, I think to me it was the more incredible thing, and they brought it back towards the end of the episode about, you know, how he didn't know how to do the math, didn't know how to put it down into words, into math language, so to speak, because he had no formal education. And so that was like a whole other layer of awesomeness to me, is the fact he did this all on his own and was able to do this, and that's pretty incredible. And we wouldn't be here on these microphones and everything right now, beaming this out to the world without his, contributions.
He actually lived till he was actually 76.
Yeah, I was gonna say like 75. Yeah.
But like by 49 is when he started getting his memory loss
Right.
and depression.
Right, of
and
course.
stuff like that,
I didn't
so.
mean that he died at
But you meant-
49,
yeah.
but like for just
No.
To that
then.
point, he had done so
He had
much of the
done so
motor.
much.
And,
So maybe we can go a step further. The fact that he started suffering from his mental illness, losing his memory at age 49, and yet he still was able to accomplish so much more just on the base that he had built to that point.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's just more kudos to him. So I don't know how we're gonna because I don't want to recap because basically we did that. I mean, not we. Dr. Tyson did that. I mean, but if there's anything that stood out for us from the beginning, where in a way I want to say is Faraday. So Faraday needed Newton. Why?
It wasn't necessarily. I mean,
Because
for a lot of the earlier scientific discoveries, but the reason they brought Newton up was because he had a fundamental question that Faraday also asked and ended up solving.
Right.
Which was how is it that the planets or the sun is able to manipulate the planets in the way they do without actually physically touching? And Faraday answered it, which was they are touching, it's just the fields are touching, not necessarily.
Right, we just don't see them, the invisible lines.
Right.
So then, now after that, so how did that propel Einstein? Because so Einstein got it from Faraday and from Newton. So what did he gain from them, and where did he take it? Where did he take it to next? That was my question. I'm looking at chat roll to see if because honestly, do we just recap every beat in his life? I mean, we can go ahead and start them. They started at Newton's hometown, where just Autumn started explaining the fact that, Newton was scratching his head until he met until Faraday came along. My question is, what propelled each? I don't know if.
well, I think it kind of goes back to what we were saying too, because even though once even further along, as we got to the end of the episode, we learned about Maxwell and how he was able to put, each scientist added their own contributions, and each scientist that goes on into the future can add to that. You get to the next level from the people
Building
previous
blocks.
before you. Exactly. And so Maxwell kind of took the same thing that Faraday had done and was able to actually bring it to the next level and do the physicists and the mathematical equations that were then able to, we were able to harness that information and be able to use it like for things like the microphone and the video camera and speed of light communications that we wouldn't have been able to have before. So Faraday was able to bring that, but not quite to that point. It took the next person to be able to do that.
You had that whole thing with Humphrey Davy before that,
Right.
which was how Faraday got his big break in his apprenticeship, if you will. So it's kind of basically reiterating what you said, the succession of passing down information to another, and now it's our turn.
Right.
We
You get a
have
little
the
further
time.
along, you can solve a little bit more things each and every generation.
Autumn, when we were watching it, you had explained when Davy was having that experiment, and,
Right.
and it blew up in his face, and I remember you were kind of laughed about it, and I was trying to figure out what it was.
Oh, it was just the way they had phrased it. He said literally he was about to he was about to start the experiment. He's like, I heard that someone lost a few fingers and lost their sight because of this. Bam. Psh,
Boom.
my eyes. So
yeah.
I started laughing and said, well, that was kind of dumb.
It was
Not
kind of
like-
a weird way they did that too. It was kind of, on the verge of being cheesy again, the way they delivered that.
Yeah.
Because I was like, okay.
It also just made him look kind of stupid.
Stupid, yeah. It was-
Because, he had to do it. I'm not
No.
saying that the experiment, and he could have said something like, well, this is dangerous, but I'm doing it for science. Not like,
Yeah.
Yeah,
somebody
someone
lost some
just
fingers
lost all
last
their
week.
limbs. Oh, well. Psh.
It's kind of like that.
Yeah.
Do you think they took liberties, Dillon?
Yeah,
No, come
yeah,
on.
they exaggerated
Yeah,
that.
just like with the very beginning. Although I liked it, the very beginning with him at school. He had the speech impediment, and that teacher was a complete. I thought, okay, they took some liberties with that, but then at the same time, I'm like, oh, I really like that. That's true. The brother, instead of going to get the cane, went and got his mom, who then went and took him out of class. Like I
and
really
he kept
like
the
that.
penny.
Yeah, you get to keep the penny, right? The half penny, yeah. I thought that was neat the way they did that, because, it could have been a lot worse. It could have been like the mom was like, oh, you idiot. Like the fact that she was supportive of him and then took him home. And from there, I think that's what he was able to learn from, going to the bookbindery and working there at a young age. So I thought
What happened to a speech impediment?
I wanted to say.
Well, sometimes kids have those,
And then they grow out
Right,
of
they
it, of
outgrow
course.
them,
Yeah,
exactly.
it was just kind of funny, and that's...
Well, and they only touched on it, and you're right, they didn't really
They
explain
never
what
addressed
happened afterwards.
Well,
fact-
and they also said when he worked at the bookbindery, he read a lot. So maybe after reading and reading and reading, he overcame his, maybe that's what caused him to.
Maybe he had a
maybe.
speech therapist like the king did.
Well, yeah.
Yeah,
His speech, King's speech
poverty-stricken.
was books.
Faraday's speech.
Well, didn't
Make a movie of that.
you guys find it interesting that Dr. Tyson spoke about the fact that he was a fundamental Christian?
Yeah.
and he
I
was
did.
part
was-
of that for the rest of his life. And the shows received so much backlash because of their stance on religion. And it was interesting that they brought this up in the 10th episode. And so that's what I wanted to ask. I mean,
Well, it's weird because they talked about that, but then they never really mentioned that again for him, and they never really said like, "Well, he did this because he believed in that." So that was weird.
was it to
Yeah.
appease a certain audience that's been giving the show flack from the start?
Well, I think I don't know if it would go that far because I think that was part of his
That's just him, you know?
upbringing, and they just said it and they didn't go back to it. Like you said, I
Right.
think if they were referring back to it multiple times, then they would have been trying to do that. But he also mentioned later on too about how he was really big into how nature was all connected. And who was the other scientist too that was it Newton or from earlier in the season that was very religious and connected his scientific principles to.
I thought you were going to go talk about
Religion.
Giordano Bruno.
Was it Bruno? Yeah, maybe it was Bruno, but I think there was somebody else too.
I know
They
what
did
you're
talk
talking
about
I
religion
just
with that
can't
too.
remember.
Yeah.
Bruno was a pantheist, I
Yeah.
believe. Yes.
Yeah,
So-
and there's
Yeah.
a lot of scientists when they get to that point, they start off religious and then they start learning through science, but they still feel spiritually connected
Yeah.
to the world and the universe because it just makes sense. It's so grand and glorious that they turn that into God, and that's what pantheism is whenever you just believe the universe all together is God, all together
Yeah,
is
yeah.
one. So
The interconnectivity.
Yeah.
But so they have touched on scientists with their religious backgrounds in the past. So
It's interesting. What was interesting about it was they just kind of touched on it and then never revisited it. And I suppose you're right. It could have just been about the fact that he did consider, I guess, the universe his own religion. Maybe later they didn't even touch on that, but the fact that he thought that the universe was interconnected. They did mention that later. But it's interesting how that they bring religion up at all in this show, unless it has something to do specifically with the story being told. And what was interesting about this was it didn't really have a place in the story. I thought that it would maybe come up later because if you're going to bring something like that up just as a storytelling device, you would think that
Right.
there'd be a distinct purpose for it, but there wasn't. So it was kind of interesting. Like, was that just kind of a drop?
right, like
to,
just a throwaway,
like,
just to have out
we're
there.
cool with religion too.
Yeah,
we like
yeah.
this guy and he's religious. Like, was that it? I'm not sure.
I'd like to see if there is a reaction tomorrow morning because there always tends to be a reaction, especially in the first half of this season of this show. There was always some outcry from religious groups on the subject matter of Cosmos.
Right.
So I'd like to see if there is a positive feedback. Even that one simple line. And
Yeah.
before I forget, we have to say hello to the AfterBuzz TV Nation. If you guys are watching us live, hello. But if you're not, make sure to tune in on iTunes, Stitcher, OneCast. Let us know what you think. Tell us your comments. What do you think? We run 80 shows a week, and one of them is actually our show by our very founder, Miss Maria Menounos and Kevin Undergaro, and that is Chasing Maria Menounos. I did a marathon last night.
Did you?
Yes, I watched 7 episodes in a row.
I mean, that's good. I thought I was about to be really impressed.
He ran a marathon
You ran
last
a marathon last night?
And
That's
he
amazing.
watched all of Maria Menounos' episodes at once
At
while
the
he was
same
running.
time.
While running.
What
Scott's
a
got my
great way
back.
to run
Yes.
the marathon.
Right.
Just like
That's a good way to run.
television.
Okay, fine. But I loved it. I've been meaning to watch it, and I had caught the first episode in like the first week, but then I did this marathon. The story, I relate to it so much, and for any of us that are chasing our dreams, and when, it's not an easy road for everyone, and they've proven it. They've showed the highs and especially the lows, especially that episode when it showed in their meager beginnings and just how difficult that is. And I can relate, and I think a lot of us can too.
Right.
So definitely, if you are a fan of Maria, please, you have to watch this show. It's fantastic. Let us know what you think about the show.
Yeah,
and
even if you're a fan of AfterBuzz, because they talk about AfterBuzz
Right, absolutely.
all the time, because this is their baby.
Yeah.
yeah.
So
Studio C, the creation of Studio C,
Yeah,
and
he's in there.
so definitely, give it a shot. Let us know what you think. Send us your comments. We'd really appreciate
There's only a
it.
couple episodes left, so
Yes.
you definitely need to get to it.
All right, so let's get back to our own episode and the fact that actually when Davey, because Davey, I guess you could say the politics of science.
oh yeah,
Oh,
got
and
a
the
little
jealousy.
Yes.
Yeah, like the
got
claws
bitter.
came out. He's like, wow.
I mean, the hell that he put him through for 4 years.
I know.
Which ended up being a great thing,
Yes.
ultimately.
Way down the line, absolutely.
The universe is all connected.
It
I
is.
suppose.
It all worked out.
You know, but then he ended up taking over for Davy once Davy passed away, and he ended up creating the lectures that started.
I thought that was great.
Yes.
That's awesome.
That was really neat.
the beautiful montage of
Yeah.
all the wonderful scientists and we got to see, of course.
Carl Sagan.
Yes.
Right. And again, the people that kind of followed in his footsteps. Again, the future scientists that each one have laid the groundwork.
There's some women in there too.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
I'm trying to remember. Oh.
I know. I wanted the whole montage to try to write down everybody's names.
Yes.
You
Oh,
know,
I gave
but
up halfway through. I'm
I
like,
know.
no,
I did too, and I couldn't.
Great scientists. We love you all.
And then
Another good thing about him, Faraday, was that all of his things, he had no interest in patenting his ideas
Yeah.
or making any profit. He knew that science is for the people, like science is for the world. You know, don't put a profit on it. Don't put a patent on it. Give it away.
Which is impressive considering he started in
amazing.
poverty and think that
Yeah.
this would be his way out. It
That's
would be easy for him to want to do that
Probably
route.
why that came through was because he started in poverty and he wanted the people, the children and the people that started the way he did to have easier access to all this information.
Yeah.
And that's great.
No, it is great because
No.
it could have been the other way. It could have
Yeah.
been like, I'm taking this all, making
Right.
a profit, and being rich off of
And
it.
that's what was beautiful about the fact that he has this Christmas lecture for the youth specifically,
right.
was someone who, first of all, wasn't very promising in school. And you hear that a lot. You hear about so many brilliant people not being particularly promising in school. Don't worry, Mom and Dad, I'm still getting good grades. It's fine. But you hear about that a lot. And for someone who didn't have necessarily the financial grounding and didn't have the opportunities and was very, very lucky in his own story and just had a very inquisitive mind and was able to put that to work. And I mean, I'm not saying it's all luck, obviously, it's a lot of genius. But the fact that he is willing to, the first thing that he does really with all of this is to say, let me help further along this chain that we were talking about earlier of science and for the people. That's incredible. And that was the best part of the episode for me.
you know, I'm not too well versed, but does this also sound similar to, let's say, like Tesla? The fact that he with electricity and not looking for profit and the whole Edison thing, and I don't know if you guys are familiar.
Yeah.
You know, so I
Yeah.
see a sinister smile on you, Dillon. No, but is that similar?
No, it's similar. I mean, that's what happened to Tesla. He got overrun by the guy trying to make money in the world and pushed him out and bullied him into the ground.
in this moment that we know.
Well, you have a lot of sad stories in that, but you also have a lot
Yeah.
of triumphant stories, and
yeah,
it's
yeah.
nice when you hear about them. So.
And you brought it to the next level, Autumn. Thank you. And that is actually, and Scott had talked about it a little bit earlier about James Clerk Maxwell, and that was the triumphant victory in the end for Faraday, because Faraday, like you said, he wasn't able to explain it via physical, with equations.
Formulas, right?
Right.
Formulas,
Which I'm
correct.
with him. I couldn't do that either.
So in the end, there's always a comeuppance. I'm trying to think. There always seems to be a vindication of everyone that we've been told so far on Cosmos. I'm wondering if are there any you said it yourself, some tragic stories in science, people that haven't gotten their due.
Yeah, we've talked about them in Cosmos as well. We don't talk about them as much, but you have people who never really saw the fruit of their labor because they were considered, and I wouldn't exactly necessarily call it tragic, but it is kind of sad when you slave over something your entire life
Right.
and never actually see it come to full fruition.
Or get the credit for it, or whatever comes through, and people are doubting you. And yeah, I mean, I can't even imagine putting your entire life's work and effort into something like that. And
You know, and he did take it a step further, where he converted. He found a way to turn it into sound waves. It turned sound waves into couriers.
Well, no, I think what it was the formula that he worked out
Yeah.
wasn't quite complete, and he was like, "There's something missing. This formula
Right.
doesn't make sense." And
Asymmetrical.
he made it. Yeah, he finished it, and when he finished it, he realized they're not just lines; they're waves, that push out.
Yeah, that emanate out further and further out.
And
yeah.
when they discovered that, they were like, "Wow, we can make those waves carry things."
Right, and that's how you harness that.
That's how you hear
And-
me
and
now.
that's the rest of the story.
And a few years later, here we are.
Yes, on the internet television. Okay.
internet vision.
Intervision.
Intervision.
All right. So,
Coming back.
any other thoughts that we have with all the discoveries of Faraday. I know, Scott, you're waiting to just unleash your science moment. But I've read the YouTube comments. They're like, Scott is the science slayer.
I will have to admit, I'm not as familiar, like Dillon was saying earlier, because I'm more on the weather geek and everything, and that's why I liked our climate change.
Did I say that?
An episode earlier. No, but what you were saying earlier about not knowing much about Faraday, and
right.
You knew about him. I remember learning about him in school, but again, it's like we're revisiting this type of stuff where they're giving us much more detail, because I felt like in school it was just kind of brushed through and you knew when they were born and died and like bullet point were the things they did. So I've enjoyed being able to dig a little deeper in some of these episodes with these scientists. I as I said off camera to you earlier, though, I thought it was an interesting choice to focus on him, but I understand why they did it. But I feel like of all the different, because we're back on Earth again and we're dealing with, it was a very specific choice. So I wondered how they decided on him and this.
I think it was
other things,
because it is a TV show, and it made so much sense to explain like the inner workings of it all.
Yeah,
and
I
they
could
showed
see
the
that.
waves going into the camera, and the camera beaming it up to
but
the
that was
satellites.
that was at the very end. So I get that's probably why they might have thought of some of the reasons, but it just was fascinating to me of all the other, space stuff and the universe and everything. Why they focused on.
Is there
these
someone
particular
you
things.
would like to see that they have not talked about?
Well, I mean, we see. Obviously we're going to be going back out into space in some of the future episodes and everything here, but I would like to learn a little bit more about that. I thought the Claire Patterson episode from a few episodes ago was brilliant too, because again, something very specific that I did not know much about. But it's interesting how they decide and choose these particular scientists and these particular issues to focus on.
Well, I mean, it could also be when you look at the depth of his accomplishments, the sheer amount of his accomplishments, and not only just how much he contributed, but how important his specific contributions were for us as a society.
True.
And how almost everything that we take for granted now, including, not just this whole setup, but like these lights and the car that I drove to get over here.
Right,
these
the
things
motor, the factories,
what we take
commerce
for granted, the fact that this circular motion over and over again is something that was absolutely imperative that this kid just discovered. I think that's probably why they decided to focus
Cork,
on
metal, mercury.
Yeah, no, I do think it's fascinating. It's just interesting. I'd love to be in their heads
in the
and how they,
production meeting.
and how they choose. Like, okay, we're going to focus on these
Dr.
things.
Tyson,
on the
who are your
episodes.
favorite scientists? And
Right,
he goes, ding, 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 ding. And then go, whoop, and then now we got all these episodes.
just on like the whiteboard.
Yeah, that's what I'm curious about, because I do think it's interesting how they chose some of their stuff.
So another thing we talked about was the Earth being a giant magnet.
Yes.
So that was part of his discovery when he's like, wow, these waves are all around us. Oh my God, the Earth is a huge magnet.
I love that stuff though, because I do love magnets, and I always thought they were impressive as a kid. And like when they were doing the science as like entertainment, and you're seeing them with the electricity and everything. I remember, the kid going and doing that
And
stuff,
like in
and
a
I always
little
thought it was
science
cool.
class.
Yeah, and they, with the balloon and your static electricity, like all that stuff is really cool. So I love that kind of fun stuff.
I got electrocuted once. That was my big
I did that
encounter
once
with
too.
electricity.
All right, we
I
got.
know. I was gonna say I practically got struck by lightning, but that's probably why my head's so crazy now.
Did you actually?
Yeah, but off, not direct.
Oh, wow.
Well, that's a story.
Yeah.
I like
Grew up in Florida.
self-constructed a laser for a science project, and you're not supposed to touch the end because it's very electric. But we tried to do it anyways, and we knew how electricity worked. We knew it, flowed through us. So I grabbed my cousin's hand, and my
That was
friend grabbed
great
his
of you.
hand, and then we touched it, and we all got shocked, and it was really dumb.
But
Don't
also
try
really
that
cool at
home.
the same time, and don't try it at home. But just the thought of it, like he actually showed that whole experiment on the episode tonight too, and that was great. Where it's like, psh, like
When he lit the fire.
yes, and his
When he
hair
lit
was
the
all
fire with
crazy.
his
Like
hand.
that's
Oh my
that was
God, you are
great.
magic.
Well, think about the impact it had on kids, and the fact that these episodes are going to have the impact on kids that are watching them
True.
themselves, like
Kids
tonight.
now.
Yeah.
But it's cool because when you see that kind of stuff, it is like magic.
Yeah, it
when
is.
you're watching a
Yeah.
type of science experiments when I was a kid, and you're seeing these invisible forces at work, you're like, that is magic, especially for
There's a
kids.
saying, I'm not, let's see if I don't butcher it. They say magic is basically science that hasn't been proven yet.
There's another saying.
You're like,
by
no, that's not it.
science fiction writer. I think his name is Clark. He says something like any future technology is indistinguishable from magic because we don't No, something like that. It's close. You can correct me. I know I probably missed it by a few words.
And the internet will.
Yeah.
Oh, they will.
Oh, they will get
Oh, yes, they will. And
All right,
God bless it, we
Well,
love you for
I
that.
got the general idea.
Any final thoughts before we move on to tons of news and gossip?
Tons?
Okay, some. Any final thoughts?
Oh, the birds. We didn't talk
Oh,
about
of course,
Oh,
the
that's
birds.
cool.
That was cool. That was pretty neat.
Descendants of dinosaurs? Well, I knew that,
we
but
knew that.
the fact that their brains can
Can
sense
sense.
the magnetic
Yeah.
fields, and they can actually, like, the same way we process visual data, their brains process, like, the magnetic waves. Mm-hmm. That's crazy.
No, that's really neat, and also, you know, the whole thing with the magnetic fields being different, a little bit stronger, a little bit weaker in certain areas too. Like, that's pretty fascinating. And we were talking about this too off camera. Like, what are the courier pigeons? Like, I want to learn
Yeah.
more about that. How did they know where to go?
That has
I've
always fascinated
me too.
me.
I'm like, how did they know where to go
Who
and come
trained
back?
pigeons? They had to have a pigeon trainer.
And why pigeons?
Someone had to be the first
Yeah.
two to decide that.
That they would be good at that. But I've always been fascinated by that. How do they know where to go
Oh,
and come
sad.
back?
You need a master
Crazy.
pigeon trainer.
That's magic right there.
No, but what's really interesting about that I find awesome is the fact that animals are so in tune
Right.
with the environment in a way. I mean, I'm sure we're in tune with the environment in a way that maybe other animals are not, but the fact that if a natural disaster is going to happen, if something
Right.
like that, you always look to the dogs, the elephants, whatever's in the room. I guess if you have the elephant in the room. No, but
I was like, yeah.
that was totally unintentional, but it happened. But yeah, you always look to the animals because they normally start freaking out, and that's really interesting to see how if we're talking about the connection of.
I think it's something to do with, like, our intelligence gets in the way of our
We're too
natural
smart
instincts.
for our own good.
We are,
exactly.
and we've gotten too kind of complacent because of all the things that we've made, and you know, we're no longer in tune with our natural sense because we're not going out to hunt, we're not living out on the land, we're in shelters that we've constructed, we're just not in tune with what we used to be. So
And we're always in the studio. Never
yeah,
know,
exactly.
so-
all day long.
Yeah, these artificial environments,
This is Dylan's third episode.
literally
today,
all day
so
long
he's-
for Dillon.
Is that coffee? Is that like straight espresso?
is.
'Cause that's
Yes, it's the double.
All right, let us move on to some news and gossip.
AfterBuzz TV News.
So what do we got? Scott or Dylan, the Peach Boys?
We'll let Dillon go first because I'm going to let you have the son and the sibling story.
Oh.
I'll
They're
mention
battling.
something else. No, I'll let him have it.
No, we like to discuss.
We do.
That's
Well,
so cute.
they
That's
found this
romantic.
week.
They're so cute.
This week they found the son's sister, or sibling, if you will. Sister, they like to call
Sister
it.
of the sun.
But you know, we've seen in previous Cosmos episodes that stars are formed in packs. They're formed with sibling stars all together in a big nebula, and they get shot out all around the world. And there's many solar systems that have 2 stars, 3 stars, sometimes more. But they've always wondered, where's our star's sibling? Well, they've had their eye on a few stars, and I can't remember the name. Did you write it down?
No, I didn't.
I
write
had
down.
my notes earlier,
I know.
and I left them
I have
in
it
my
on
car.
my
I'm a jerk.
phone.
Chat roll, let us know. Let me
The
see.
long lost sister star? That's
Yep.
so awesome.
And they've had their eyes on a few, but they've been doing all these tests,
Yeah.
chemical makeups, blah, 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 radiation, blah, blah, blah. And they finally found one that they think matches all the criteria that we wanted to be like, that's it. That's the one. So, yeah.
And we don't know where it's located?
No, it's, what was it, 100 light years away?
Yeah, I'm
100
trying
light
to
years
open up
away.
that story. The article, I should say.
So
And
it's right around the block.
it's,
Okay.
you can't see it with the naked eye, but you can see
No,
it
you
with
cannot.
binoculars.
Oh.
It's right next to Vega.
It's 350 million light years across. I'm trying to find it because I read it earlier. And now it's like this whole article.
But yeah, apparently you can see it with binoculars.
Yes, you can.
You don't
cannot
even
see
need
it
a
by the
major
naked eye.
telescope.
Autumn, this news bit is just gone to shit.
Yeah, we lost it today.
It was.
We usually
started
have
off
our
as news.
Scott usually
I know,
has his
I have-
newspaper.
I have my
got
newspaper.
printed out notes.
Moving on to the next piece of news.
Anyways,
But anyways, it is interesting. You can look it up.
Look it
it's,
up.
It's easy to find. And this is another thing you'll have to look up as well because we don't have time to be able to show the whole thing. But did you hear about the Harvard and MIT put together this whole computerized simulation of the birth of the universe?
I did see that.
Yes.
And
I
you
did.
could watch it, and it's at illustrious-project.org. So it's illustris-project.org, and you can basically watch this whole computerized simulation of the birth of the universe, and it's beautiful. It's visually stunning. It's really cool. It's a good.
I think they also.
I'm on it right now.
You're on it right now.
There
Yeah.
it is. I think they also posted it on space.com. Too,
Yes, they did. It's
you can see
posted
it
on
there.
a bunch of different places, but if you go to the illustrious-project.org, you can also read about the history. You can learn more about it. There's a bunch of different things on there. It's a
Maybe
really,
I'll
really
post
cool
a link
thing.
to facebook.com/a-cosmic perspective.
There you go. Put it
There
on
you
your
go.
Facebook page, and then you can link it, and everyone can find out there, because it is a really beautiful, awesome thing that they've put together here.
They also, NASA put HD cameras streaming live on the International Space Station. You can watch Earth in all its glory.
In real time.
I did
Really?
put a link up to that.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
you can watch that in
you can
real
go check
time.
that
That's
out.
pretty fun.
All right, so that's it for news and gossip. Let's move on to predictions.
And now, your
Well, it's what's going on next week, basically. What is it? They're traveling out of this world and looking for life outside of our planet.
Yes.
Yes, that's exciting.
No, it's exactly. I think it'll be really cool because we've actually been talking about this, how they're back on the Mars with the Mars rover, trying to find out if there's life there or suitable life. So this is the type of stuff that's we're dealing with right now in space exploration. So it's great.
I was pretty excited when I saw him like hanging out with Curiosity. Curiosity just doesn't he look so cute every time you see Curiosity?
Yeah.
You're like a little cute little guy driving around on Mars, taking some selfies. He takes selfies.
He takes.
Oh
He
my!
tweets them.
Get us out!
I know. I think you need to go to bed now.
I'm so tired.
Please, Dr. Tyson, next week. Let's have some. I love the biographies, but
too.
I can't wait to talk about the stuff going on next week.
Right.
So let's get out of here. So, Autumn, where can they find you?
You can find me at Twitter at Autumn Chiklis.
And you're doing another show as well, right? What do
Yeah,
we got going
I've
on?
been doing Game of Thrones for the past 2 weeks and hopefully the next week.
Just
So
Game of Thrones.
catch
No
me.
big deal. No big deal.
It's just Game of
They're the
Thrones.
ones killing us in the ratings. Okay, so Dillon, where can they find you, buddy?
You can find me on Twitter at Dillon Chance. You can find me here for Grimm season finale next week.
Nice.
Also on AMC's Turn. Also do the AfterBuzz for that. And you can check out the Facebook page that I co-run with my partner Courtney Bree. It's facebook.com/A Cosmic Perspective.
And
Nice.
Scott Moore, where can they
You
find
can find me on Twitter at sman80. That's SMAN80. And also, I am in Oxygen's community room for Chasing Maria Menounos and the Beamly app. So we can chat along to her awesome episodes on Tuesday nights at 7 Pacific, 10
You can
Eastern.
chase her. What's got?
You can chase her with me, exactly.
And Roya, thank you for putting up with us. Where can they find you?
You can find me in space or on Twitter at @HeyRoya.
Nice. And you can find me at JC Rubio TV on Instagram and Twitter. So for Roya, Autumn, Scott, Dillon, I'm JC, and we're Cosmos After Show. See you next week.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.
Thank you for watching AfterBuzz TV on YouTube. For more of your favorite after shows and interviews, subscribe to our channel here, and be sure to share your opinion on the episode in the comment section below here. We'd love to see what you guys are buzzing about. Thanks again. Buzz you later.